Good evening. Welcome to Expat Insights. I am your host, Raju Mandhyan. Here at Expat Insights, we take external views of internal successes of foreigners, expats, and immigrants who have made Philippines their home. Tonight, we are especially honored to have quasi-expats, people who have been in this country for the longest time. They have forgotten that they might be expats. My first guest tonight, a British person, Englishman. Terence Hockenhull is a sales trainer and a flight instructor. And my second guest, Padma Siap, ethnic Indian but Chinese by marriage. Welcome to Expat Insights, Padma and Terence.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening to you too.
So this is a show where we talk about all the wonders that you provide to the Philippines. So start by telling us who you are and what makes you who you are.
Well, I'm a bit of I guess a world traveller. I was born in England. At the age of 2, I moved to Germany for 4 years, Singapore for 3 years, back to England for 2 years, East Africa for 7 years. Since then, I've lived in Australia, New Zealand, Philippines, Hong Kong, Thailand, and a number of other different countries. And I've worked pretty much extensively now throughout Southeast Asia. So I do travel a lot. But my home is here in the Philippines.
What kind of passport do you hold?
I hold a British passport. British passport.
All right, so maybe it's a global passport. Padma, a little bit about your background.
Yes, I was born and brought up in Cebu, actually. Of Indian parents, my grandfather moved here first in the 30s. My father moved to the Philippines when he was 13 years old. And he's lived here ever since. All the siblings were born and brought up in Cebu, actually. And I call myself Cebuana, very proudly. I love being Cebuana. I actually lived in the United States in the 80s when I took graduate studies in theater for 5 years. And then marriage brought me to Cebu. I married a Filipino-Chinese. Then about 8 years ago, moved back to the United States and decided Cebu is my home. So a year ago, came back to Cebu, and I'm again doing what I so love to do.
Which is training.
Yes.
You speak the language?
I'm very Cebuana. In fact, if you want a sample, I say, Bisaya gyud kaayo ko, meaning I am absolutely Cebuana.
Oh, say that again.
Bisaya gyud kaayo ko.
Can you say that for the Englishman? Bisaya, or how do you say if it's an Englishman?
If it's an English, say the Cebuano in a British accent?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. Say I'm a British person in Cebuano.
Oh. Ako, I'll have to say British. Ako, British kaayo.
Ako, British kaayo.
Meaning, I'm very
so
British.
Where does your loyalty lie? I mean, you're an English person who moved around the world, married a Filipina. You're an ethnic Indian person, born in Cebu, married to a Chinese man, lived in the States. So where does your loyalty lie? I know you live here, you work here, but if somebody was to ask you, what's your core, what's your essence? What's yours?
You know, I can't speak for other nationalities, but if you're English, you're always English.
No matter what.
No matter what. It doesn't alter the fact that I'm incredibly proud to be able to live here in the Philippines. My wife is Filipina. My home is here, and I've lived here for 25 years, as you mentioned. So, I mean, this is always going to be home. But there's always that little piece of your heart that says England is really what defines the person I am.
There's a little blue blood inside you.
I'm a big royalist as well.
Yeah?
Big fan of the royal family.
Did you attend the wedding?
I did not.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Now tell us a bit about your work. Of course, Padma, you can tell me where your loyalties lie. India or China or Cebu?
I actually call myself Phil Indian. And I actually got that term from you, Raju, when I met you several years ago.
You
yes.
Did? Okay.
Because before that, I would say, I'm half Indian and half Filipino. At home, I was raised very Indian. In school, among my friends, I was very Filipino. And when you gave me the phrase Phil Indian, I said, oh, that's the perfect way to describe me, 50-50.
Copyright laws, you know, so you owe me some royalties for that.
Dinner will do, I hope.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about what you have been doing for 25 years in this country, and you for
All my life, except the times that I was out.
So, Terry.
Well, I mean, I have a very interesting and checkered employment background.
Checkered, okay.
And I wouldn't change it for the world. I mean, I kicked off from school. I joined the Royal Air Force and I flew jets for a couple of years.
Gosh.
I then went off to Hong Kong and worked in the Hong Kong police for 10 years.
Like James Bond.
I did all sorts of jobs in Hong Kong. I used to host the TV show in Hong Kong, Police Report.
Well, just like this one?
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually made a movie in Hong Kong.
Wow.
I then left the police and I became a private investigator. And I then moved from Hong Kong. I spent about 9 months as a private investigator in Hong Kong.
Oh my God.
I then moved down to Manila, which was shortly after Marcus went. I arrived in Manila to basically run the office down here for 2 years.
You don't still work for Scotland Yard or something?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, at least not that I can tell you about. And then I got into training, and it was just something that I.
An outcome of your background?
I don't know. I'm just, I've always felt comfortable in front of people. I've always felt comfortable speaking. I'm a little bit different from most consultants. Most consultants, you'll find, have got a fairly wide range of programs that they run. Now, I specialize only in the area of sales and negotiation. So, although I have very comprehensive knowledge of the subject, and I have the right programs to target the right type of participant on the programs, I'm not into supervisory development or team building or culture building. I leave that to people like you.
Like me, like her, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. But your background, private investigator, actor, and gun for hire, how did you move into sales? What about your past allows you to do sales?
Well, one of the things I've always considered to be very important for people who are involved in training is that you're not just some guru who stands up and delivers a training. I think it really is necessary if you're going to, if you're going to be credible, is that you actually have the experience yourself. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things about the way that I operate my consultancy is that it's still me who knocks on the doors of my customers and I sell my own programs.
Wow.
So I've always had that. I'm also have been involved in the past, and I still am involved in a number of different projects which have involved a lot of negotiation. So again, these are skills which I'm using on a day-to-day basis. So I would say that for me is one of the important areas, is that you're in if you're going to train, have a good knowledge of your subject, practical knowledge, as well as the theoretical knowledge. So the theoretical knowledge you can
buy it in a book.
I guess you can buy it in a book. I was very lucky early in my career in sales training to be exposed to spin selling, which is a Hathaway product, probably the best known of all of spin selling.
Oh, okay.
It's probably the best known of all of the sales training programs, and really all of the research which went into that program forms the foundation of any credible research-based sales training program.
So you're learning as you go. You're practicing what you preach, and you're learning as you go. Since you're selling your own products and your
I wouldn't say in terms of the skills that I teach. First of all, they don't change significantly. What people were doing in Roman times in terms of persuading people to buy ducks and chickens and houses and aqueducts and whatever it might have been are no different than the modern engineer would be using today, or salesperson, if you will. So I don't think there's any change in the skills. But one of the things that makes my job very pleasurable is the fact that because I work with so many different industry groups and so many different companies, every single time I deliver a training program, I get to learn about how a pharmaceutical company works, I get to learn how a manufacturing facility, all of this is skills which I take on board and I can use in subsequent programs. So it's an ongoing learning process.
All right, let's take a break here. We'll come back and ask you about customer service. And few minutes break, and we'll come back and talk to Terry and Padma. We're still talking about sales and service excellence in the 21st century. Please stay with us. Good evening. Welcome back to Expert Insights. We are talking to Terry Hockenhull and Padma Siap, and we are on the subject of sales and service excellence in the 21st century. Terry just finished telling us about his background, and now it's Padma's turn to tell us about how she got into customer service training. Padma, can you share some secrets? What happened in your life?
I'll start when I was 13
5
years
years old?
13 actually.
Okay.
Before 13, I was a total introvert. And then there was a sudden shift, and that was because I acted in a school play.
All right.
And that shift turned me from introvert to extrovert.
Wow,
And
what
then
was that shift?
It was realizing that it's so much more fun to be extroverted, to be able to express yourself than to hold back.
Oh, all right.
Yes, and theater actually made that happen for me at 13. I played Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker, deaf, blind, and mute, Helen Keller. And after that, there was no stopping. I just expressed myself
You were
and
unleashed.
enjoyed it. Yes.
You were unleashed.
True, true. So I taught, during my senior year in college, I taught up to 3 years in an all-girls school, same school I went to. Yes, in Cebu. And then I moved to Texas, and I took an MFA in theater.
What's an MFA?
Master of Fine Arts in Drama.
Wow.
It's actually a terminal degree in theater because a master's in theater is not terminal, meaning you still have to go to a PhD in theater. But if you take an MFA, the credits, the number of hours are so much longer, it's a PhD equivalent, so they call it terminal.
And this was 20 years ago?
This was in the 80s, early to mid-80s. And
did you, when you went into theater, did you think that it'll pay you? Because people, when they go into arts, think that it'll not pay them. You know, it's not a profession. It's fun. So did you think it'll pay you?
You know, I didn't think about the pay. I was so random, and I still am very random in many ways. I go by what feels good, and theater felt good. It brought out the best in me. It gave me a natural high. So when I told my dad, I said, I want to take a master's in theater. He goes, I'll support you if you take an MBA.
Bombay girl.
Yes. And I come from a family of business people, and what this daughter of mine taking theater? How can it support the lifestyle you were used to? And I said, I just want to so badly. And he helped me initially, and he didn't need to help me anymore because I worked hard to get a grant. And I did a teaching assistantship. So I taught in Texas for 5 years, even after I got married.
Did you ever want to go to Hollywood and be a waitress there?
No.
No, that was not part of your dream?
Hollywood, I didn't see myself as doing
a
Hollywood.
Waitress, okay.
I actually wanted to be, Oprah never existed then. I mean, she was there, but she was not a star then. I actually wanted to be a talk show host.
Like this one over here?
Yes, like you. I wanted to be like you.
All right, thank you.
I never got there because life took me to left and right turns. But anyway, how did I get to training?
Customer service,
Yes. I finished my master's in theater, went back to Cebu. Marriage brought me back. And I actually started teaching adults. I taught teachers first and public school principals to use theater as a methodology for teaching academic concepts.
Which is still useful today in today's world. I don't know if Terry employs any of those competencies, but you know, theater skills are really important. Anyway, I don't know. Terry probably will share with us.
I think so. I mean, part of no matter how much we want to be purist about what we train and say that we want to be able to deliver a quality training program, when we've got people in front of us for 2 or 3 days, part of the show, if you will, is for the facilitator to be able to keep people entertained, engaged, entertained, and motivated. So, you know, I do think that, you know, being able to tell a funny anecdote, being able to act out a story, those type of skills are very important if you're going to be a good facilitator of training programs.
So presentation, storytelling, poetry, drama, role play.
True.
This is all part of your initial training, core training?
Yes. And it's not just that the facilitator needs to be that. The facilitator needs to be colorful, use facial expression, vocal variety, gestures to the
like you're doing right now.
Right now. Oh,
okay.
See, I don't even think about it. But another core competence which makes my training programs very popular, and I get a lot of return clients and many new clients without trying really hard, is because I engage the participants in role play, a great deal of role play. So they're learning by doing, and that's very high impact.
I've actually had several actors on this chair. I've had Paul Holm, who's an Englishman and an actor. I've had Joel Trinidad, who's a Filipino actor. And I had Michelle Washington, an American who was here last week, and she's also a theater trainer at UP. All three of them said this. They said, you know, theater draws out the best in them. I mean, they have to somehow dig deep into them and be who they want to be. Of course, in sales, there was a salesperson with Michelle Washington, and she was talking that when I have to sell, I have to be my best. I have to be somebody else who is probably better than myself. I mean, a better version of myself. So how true does that hold for you as trainers and actors and trainers?
When you talk about being yourself,
yeah, a better version of yourself.
A better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, actually, training creates that better version. But I first start with going into the authentic self. Be yourself. And then the training provides the skills so that they can add the skills to their very core, and then they come out real. And
no, for me, I wouldn't say I'm a better person as a trainer than I am as a normal
human being.
I think I'm a slightly different person. I don't know about you, but I've tried to tell people on my training programs in the past that I'm actually quite a shy person.
Yeah.
There is nothing I hate more than going to a cocktail party full of people who I've never met before.
Amazing.
I'm absolutely, I would just rather not go.
Yeah.
And yet, if you ask me to stand on a stage and talk to 2,000 people and give a 2-hour presentation, I don't even, it just doesn't even worry me in the slightest.
I think
now, to me, that's a big fundamental shift between who I am in real life and what I do as a professional
I
trainer.
have the same challenges. You know, I also do a lot of presentations, and one of my challenges, when I want to party, I cannot party. But you ask me to do some facilitating, I will. I think probably the difference lies in the fact that when I facilitate, I'm adding value. When I party, I'm just consuming. That's my feeling, that I'm just using up resources. But when I'm on stage or in a classroom, I think I'm doing some good. So that pulls me, that pushes me to do what I do. I don't know if that works for you.
I think also it's a little bit about your own perceived level of competence. Because in all areas of life, no matter what area you happen to be in the areas of life where you are highly skilled, well-educated, well-trained, and extremely able, those are the areas where the people interaction, if you like, I won't say they fade to nothing, but they diminish because you have that power of authority, you have that power of knowledge, and I think that does make a big difference. So I find I get very worried about, I've now reached sort of my late 50s, and I've reached the point now where I get very worried about people saying, oh, that guy, he's really boring. And the trouble is that I think when you're my type of personality, I can't talk for other people, you tend to fall back on those areas where you believe you can talk competently. So, although I don't talk about sales, because I find that a little bit boring to do outside of my work, I have this fascination with aeroplanes. I have this fascination with flight, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
But that would typically be my icebreaker, only because it's an area I'm so completely comfortable with.
It pleases you on the inside.
It pleases me, but it's also an area that I know I can speak competently about. That nobody's going to... I think that I'm the sort of personality, I always have that little fear that somebody's going to point the finger and go, that guy's not very smart.
So there's a certain amount of passion involved in your competency. Yeah, Padma.
I was just going to say, I'm not like both of you.
No, really? Well,
I love cocktail parties. I love parties. It energizes me. And I love standing in front of an audience. That energizes me too.
Yeah.
I am happiest when I'm among people. And so I come home from a long day's work. Someone calls me for a party. I get re-energized. And I say, I'm there in a moment.
All right. So
different
strokes for different folks.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I actually, because of my theater background, I believe that I no longer worry about not being able to engage an audience. I no longer worry about being boring. And that brings me to another thing that I'm doing besides customer service training, which is helping people to be colorful. I have a program called Get Colorful.
Really? When are you running it? You should be...
I run it on a regular basis.
In Cebu?
In Cebu, yes.
It would suit you well in your grey jacket and
in my black suit.
Yeah,
in my black
absolutely.
Suit. Get colorful, so I need a
yellow.
I think too dark. Too dark, okay. Hey, let's talk about fantastic background. I understand where you're coming from. let's talk about where sales and service, customer service is today compared to 25 years ago. The concern here is there's so much growth in information technology. There's so much, the world's become so much more flatter. People are outsourcing work. And what is your perception of sales and service today compared to, say, 1980? Terry, how have things changed?
You know, at the end of the day, I don't think they've changed very much for a salesperson.
For a salesperson.
For the guy who's out there in the street, who's meeting customers, I really don't think there are any significant changes. There are changes in terms of the software and computers and laptops to, you know, carry their presentations. The technology will support them.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, selling is still about one-on-one skills, of me being able to persuade you to buy the product that I want to sell you, to try and help you make an informed and sensible decision, which is your decision and should always be your decision, not mine.
Yeah.
But I should be able to influence you to make that decision in favor of my product. So I don't think that's changed.
The core hasn't changed. The
Yeah.
core hasn't changed. But maybe the culture has changed. You think? 30
No,
years ago, people were...
I don't even think the culture changed. But where I see sales going in the future, in fact, if I look at what I've been doing for the last 25 years, 25 years ago when I started in this industry in the Philippines, I would run 90% of my sales training programs were consultative selling programs for basic salespeople. That program now represents less than 10% of my business. Most of the programs that I do now are for major account management and for sales planning. And sales planning is the one area which, as a topic to teach, I find it very frustrating that there are so few salespeople who will work
strategy.
Who will work outside the immediacy of meeting their targets and quotas at the end of each month. Because that's what drives most salespeople. If I try and sell a training program at the end of a month, clients will say to me, "Oh, no, we're coming up to cut-off date. We can't possibly..." Everybody's out there in the field. And it's because there is a general overall lack of planning in salespeople in terms of looking at the potential of their account, looking at what they need to do now to close a sale in 6 months' time. It's all about...
It's more Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
It's more Sun Tzu. It's more art of war. So from your perspective, you want to define it for the audience, what it means to plan sales 6 months in advance? Take any industry, for example. Take the retail or take the insurance industry, which is the hottest thing.
Well, let's say that you work as an insurance agent.
Right. Or a manager in an insurance firm.
Or a manager. But let's just talk about from the salesperson's perspective first of all. And say you have a high net worth individual account. Okay. Now you should be able to look at the account at the moment that you currently have and look at the percentage of their business that you actually take on board. And you should be able to say, all right, look, where is this account going to be in the next 3 years? Now, insurance is a good example because typically when first time you sell insurance, you fill out a form and you get all the details about number of children and the wife and the age and how many cars and how much money.
Yeah.
So an insurance agent should be able to say, look, in 3 or 4 years' time, this particular individual is going to be sending one of his children to college. Another son will have grown up and just left college. Okay, he will be coming up within 5 years of retirement date.
Right.
His wife will probably want to go back and work again.
Wow.
And that should allow the salesperson to actually profile that individual 2 or 3 or 4 years ahead of time.
So it's not
then start having a look at...
So not a one-shot deal, but a relationship out into the future, as in building up customers for my future. Is that what...
Well, you know, if you're the sort of salesman who stands on the corner of Rojas Boulevard with a tray full of those little nodding dogs, you don't have to care about your future customers.
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, when you have 40 or 50,000 cars driving past you every day, you have unlimited customers. But if you talk to any professional salespeople and you start to take into account factors like their competitors, people within their own company who are selling to the same client, you suddenly find that the client bases are typically, a large client base is where you have access to 200 clients. That's large. And a lot of the people who I deal with, they have the client base is maybe 10, 15 clients. Now, if you have 10 or 15 clients, you must be able to look at future business.
You
must be able to look at the potential for future growth. And you must be able to put in place a strategy today which will allow you at some stage in the future to be able to take that client and sell them more.
From your perspective, from all the industries that exist in the Philippines, which of these industries are employing this knowledge and technique? Is there any specific industry who's up there into the future, thinking ahead?
Again, it's something that I think, I don't think this is a new thought, and I think it certainly is a thought which is espoused by a lot of sales managers. You should be doing this. But as I say, it's changing that culture from working the immediacy of the moment. What's important? Closing the sale this week, okay? Making your target by the end of the month, and taking time. And that's one of the things that salespeople don't like to do. The idea of taking time out of making client visits, seeing client, and actually sitting in the office and working out a strategy, a long-term strategy.
Makes a lot more sense.
That's what they should be doing. But as I say, unfortunately, I don't see too many examples. And it's not just here. I mean, I do a lot of training in Malaysia. I've just come back from a 9-day trip. Exactly the same.
Terry, I'll come back to you and I'll ask you a little bit about the future of what you're doing, and given the fact that there are so many BPOs. But let's come to Padma here. Padma, customer service, define it for us.
Well, before that,
you want to respond to
Yes, I was thinking this phrase, if you're not using it already, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And you're probably saying that to your participants.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's a premise. Now, customer service.
Customer service in the 21st century.
Customer service in the 21st century.
1980 to today.
I think more and more people are focused on customer service today because of the amount of competition. So many industries have come up, and so many competitors are there. The playing field is so vast. Customer service makes sales possible. But there's such
sales employs or deploys customer service. Sets loose customer service.
Sales is the root.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Customer service is the root. You give good service, they'll buy from you. There's no
Or
other
they
way.
bought from you and then you provide the service.
Customer service is actually what you give as you're selling. Right? So you need to know the skills of what the customer wants. It's actually putting yourself in the place of the customer and listening. And in the past, customer service used to be defined by management.
Correct.
But right now, customer service should be defined by the frontliners, the people who are actually meeting the customers themselves.
Not the whole enterprise, not everyone, just the frontliners.
The
whole enterprise, the whole business.
Actually, the frontliners
should lead it.
Leads it. Management sees to it that there's implementation throughout. Because it's the frontliners that are able to give feedback on what the clients want. Also, another thing that management should realize in the execution of customer service is many of the frontliners do not know their parameters with which to be flexible.
What does that mean?
Meaning, okay, I give you I'm a waiter, I give you a dish, and the customer says, this is not the way I wanted it cooked.
All right.
And then a waiter could come and say, if I take it back, then I'll have to pay for it, and then lay a guilt trip on
the customer.
And that's not customer service.
Yeah.
Management should then say, if a customer is unhappy, don't worry about it. Take the plate and say, I'll give you what you want.
Yeah.
It's a manager there then that will help carry out, and it provides the parameters for the frontliners to further implement. So the frontliners say, this is what the customers want.
Kaya ko
Boss,
yan. Akin yan.
What can we do? What am I allowed to do and not allowed to do? That should be clear. So it's a symbiotic relationship.
Isn't the initial
Terry,
part,
let's pause here for a commercial break. We'll come back and then we'll go deeper into this and what the future holds for this profession. All right? So stay with us. We are with Terry Hockenhull and Padma Siap. We're talking about sales and customer service in the 21st century. I'm your host, Raju, and we'll be right back. Good evening. Welcome back to Expert Insights. I'm your host, Raju, and we are talking to Padma Siap and Terry Hockenhull. We're talking about sales and customer service. So, and they just told us about the importance of, not the importance, but the crux of sales and customer service. Now, where does sales and customer service, do the twain meet somewhere?
Oh,
Because we were talking about sales creating customer service or customer service creating sales.
There's some very interesting research which was done some years back in the US.
In the US, okay.
And it basically said, or showed very clearly, that if an organization or for whatever reason lets a customer down very, very badly,
Yeah.
okay, they sell them a piece of equipment that breaks or it doesn't live up to its expectations.
A car, a lemon.
Providing that the organization is prepared to invest the time and the money
Yeah.
in terms of going back and supporting the individual, essentially apologizing and taking very proactive steps to put things right, the customer will remain loyal. So you're not going to lose a customer just because your company has not performed. You'll lose them when your company doesn't perform.
After the sale.
And this is post-sales. And then you find the customer service and customer support is not there also to support the customer. Then customers will leave.
Wow.
And one thing which is very interesting about the Filipino,
Yeah.
which, I mean, we foreigners, we have a reputation.
Here in this country, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. We all foreigners, I think, we have a reputation for being arrogant, for being very outspoken.
Tell me about it. You know. Tell me about
Now,
it, yeah.
part of the reason for that is because if I go into a restaurant and
Yeah.
somebody serves me a plate of cold food, to use your example,
Cool.
and it's cold,
Cold
I
food,
will
okay.
say, this is cold, change it.
Mhm.
Okay, I have no hesitation for
All
two
right.
reasons. Number one is because I want hot food and I paid for it to be hot. But number two, if you don't tell them, there's never going to be an improvement. The standard now becomes cold food is acceptable.
Right.
Now, the big difference between foreigners and Filipinos...
A customer, foreigner is a
yeah.
customer, okay?
A Filipino customer is likely to say, this food is cold and it's awful, and they will get up and they will walk out of the restaurant and they'll never go back.
Wait, this
So
is
that,
this the
that's
truth?
That's a fundamental, to me, that's a fundamental difference.
Is that the truth? From where you come from, Padma?
From where I come from,
I mean, from your perspective, that you're saying that the expat will complain while
We'll
a
be much more
non-expat,
vocal. Much more
a
vocal,
non-expat will walk away.
generally.
Is that
it's possible, but I see more and more Filipinos
speaking up? Yeah.
Oh,
because
yeah.
of Western
Things are
influence.
changing.
Yes.
My dear wife, who I've been married to for a lot of years, when we used to have complaints like that.
At home,
when we
you
went
have
to a
no
restaurant-
complaints about the food she cooks, though.
She doesn't cook. I do all the
Oh,
cooking.
great. Okay. So, okay. Does she get up and walk away?
No, never.
Okay.
I cook too well for that. No, but I mean, when we first started dating, when we first got married, she would not only would she not complain, but she would get very embarrassed and very upset with me for complaining. Now I can sit in a restaurant. I actually don't need to say anything. She'll complain ahead of me.
Right.
Oh,
You
okay.
rubbed off on her.
So, yeah,
lot.
I think I've
25
rubbed
years
that off.
of rubbing
Yeah.
off. Not bad.
I'll tell you where
Yeah.
that's coming from. Actually, the core Filipino value system is smooth interpersonal
Absolutely.
relationships.
Kapayapan,
They don't
peaceful.
want to rock the boat, and they'd rather swallow cold food, and they say, "I'll never go there
Well,
again." Complain.
my perspective is a Westerner, not an expat. An expat could be an Easterner. No? And a Westerner will express his displeasure. A Filipino will also express displeasure, but in a different way. I mean, you walking away is a little too extreme, in my opinion. I think they'd call the waiter in and then have a little quiet conversation. That's my perspective. That's what I do because I'm so much of a Filipino too. So that's what I would do. I think that's it. But it's standing up and walking away is really insulting.
No, I'm not talking about getting up from the table and walking out.
Oh,
What
not
I'm saying-
complaining at all.
What I'm saying is that the tendency is no complaint, to put up with what they're served, and then vote with their feet by saying, okay, I'm just not going to go back and patronize that establishment again. And I think that's a fundamental difference. I say we do have a reputation for being a little bit arrogant and outspoken and critical, and it's something which you grew up here, but for all foreigners who come here, the first 2 years is a really difficult period of adjustment, because we see things which we consider, based on where we come from, to be wrong, and we tend to be very outspoken. And after 25 years in the Philippines, I do understand the Filipino who turns around and says, look, you're in our country. This is the way we do it here. If you don't like it, you can get onto a plane and off you go.
Back to being English.
And to be honest, I wish that we shared that same value system in countries like England and countries like America.
Oh, the Filipino value system.
I wish we turned around.
Niceness.
I wish we turned around and said to people, you can't do as you please if you come to our country. I mean, just bringing up what's been going on in England in the last week with the riots.
I'm sorry about that. Really
which
sorry about that.
is an absolute tragedy. And when you look at, I don't want to point fingers, but if you look at some of the people who are involved, these people, they're new visitors. Essentially, they might hold a British passport now, but essentially they're newcomers to Britain. And this idea that they can come to Britain and they don't need to follow our social standard, they don't need to, they don't need to respect our local religions. To me, I find deplorable.
Oh, sorry to hear about that. I hope that things settle down, and I hope the newcomers in England become very English very soon, for the sake of peace and happiness. No? Padma, what's the future hold for customer service in the Philippines for you? What do you want to create? You've been working at this for the last 25 years. What do you want to create? What do you want to put out into the Philippines saying, me, Padma, actress, ethnic Indian, trained in the US, this is what I want customer service to be?
I want customer service to learn. I want customer service to be...
In all sectors of Philippines, yeah?
Yes.
All businesses.
Yes. I would like for businesses to have very strong customer service feedback mechanisms.
Measures, yeah?
Yes. And each organization should find the best way to get feedback.
Yeah.
There's this one restaurant in Cebu that after you pay the cashier and you bring your food, he gives you this piece of paper that says, text your comments to...
Rate my service,
yes,
rank my service quality.
That's not going to work.
No.
People are just going to throw it away. The customer service feedback mechanism has to reward the customer for giving feedback. Because when I get this piece of paper, I go, I'm going to spend 1 peso on my text message for what? Giving them feedback, and I don't get anything back. What's in it for me? And the typical customer will say
So if I provide a candy to the customer, am I not bribing him into giving me good feedback?
You're encouraging him.
Okay.
Paradigm shift.
What's your take on that?
Well, I understand those mechanisms. Where I get frustrated with those mechanisms is the ones who call you up after you have your car serviced and say, are you happy with the service? And you go, yes, actually, I'm very happy. And they mark that down on the chart, and that is the feedback they're looking for. When you say, no, I'm not happy, you screwed up here, and you've made a mistake here, and then nothing is done about it. That, to me, just makes a mockery of having that feedback system. You've got to take the good, and you've got to take the bad. You've got to take the good as being the standard that you should always be striving for, and you've got to have a look at the bad and say, how can we correct it? And I think that's part of, you were talking about the reward of a 1 peso, but you know, if somebody gives, whether it's done on a slip of paper or it's done by way of a text message, if you give quality service and somebody comes back, or sorry, if you give feedback that says the service I received was not up to par, and then somebody comes along and says, okay, well, I'll put that right for you, then that should be reward in itself for giving the feedback.
So level two, it's like correcting after failure. That helps a lot more to the original performance and the branding of the company. So a little bit beyond when...
Well, I mean, it was a question I was going to ask you earlier on, is to me, in terms of customer service, isn't the customer service culture that exists in an organization the most important thing?
Definitely. It drives sales.
Say that again, sorry.
The customer service culture.
Yeah.
In other words, what the organization believes customer service means and how that should be deployed out to their customers. That, to me, if you don't have that culture in place, it doesn't matter how many mechanisms or how much feedback you get, you're still not going to have everybody living with the same focus to quality service.
Yes.
If you feel like it, both of you, if you can cite companies with best practices, that this company in the Philippines does well in sales, does well in customer service. You might want to name names, it's quite up to you. It's your profession, it's your business. But this is the moment to do that. If you want to cite an example.
I mean, the last example I can recall was Kenny Rogers. I went in to have some ribs. I've eaten them there before. They've always been very good, quite tasty, you know, adequate. And I ate in one of their branches in Makati, and they brought me some ribs, and they really weren't very good.
Yeah.
They were tough. There was nothing wrong. They weren't bad. They were just, for whatever reason, they were tough. I called the waiter across, and the next thing is I had the manager there. They were immediately replaced. There was a strong apology at the table. There was an apology by the manager when I left the restaurant, and they also asked me for my cell phone number, and they called me up.
Good follow-through.
Oh, yeah.
Kudos to Kenny Rogers. Padma, we have 3 more minutes to go, and I want to ask you about things you do other than sales training. Yeah. But Padma, if you want to cite best practice, your best customer, your best training company, whatever you have this minute, then we'll go into what you do outside of sales and customer service.
At this point, I must be very critical. And that's why I'm doing customer service, because I want companies here to go by the Ritz-Carlton standard, where Ritz-Carlton says, we are ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. That's their premise.
Nice.
And if you go by that premise and you treat every client like a lady and a gentleman, well,
Por
you have it.
favor, señora. Okay, now let's talk about, thank you for giving us this information and knowledge on sales and customer service. I hope it helps the audience that is listening and watching this show. But I understand that both of you have some extracurricular activities other than sales and customer service. You're smiling a lot. Maybe you want to go first. We have 1 minute to share what you do outside of customer.
Besides customer service,
yeah,
I do.
You had some pictures on helping out kids and mothers and parents.
Yes, actually.
Can you squeeze those pictures in quickly?
Oh, right.
Just quickly, yeah?
I'm in Manila right now because I was called by SOS Children's Village, which is
Save
an
Our
orphanage.
Souls?
You know, I don't know what it stands for, but
okay.
SOS Children's Village is an orphanage,
yeah.
But unlike other orphanages, it takes care of children all throughout their lives, actually. They don't give children out for adoption. It takes care of children in a nourishing home environment until they've gotten jobs. You know, they go through college, they've gotten jobs, and then they're totally self-sufficient, and that's when they let go. Now, there's a mother assigned to anywhere between 10 to 12 children from different families that are put in one house. And I'm here because I also do parenting seminars, and I was helping mothers with communication and motivation, especially for their children in the preteen and teen years. Oh,
congratulations for doing such good social work.
Thank you.
Terry, what is it that you do outside of sales?
Flying.
Flying? Tell us about it. Quickly.
We have a flying club up in Pampanga, in Magalang. It's called the Angeles City Flying Club. We have about 30 aeroplanes at our airfield.
Yeah, I wish you'd brought pictures, but...
And, well, we have a website, which is angelisflying.com.
angelisflying.com.
And we welcome people to come up. They can take a trial instruction flight.
May I get one when I come up next time? Yeah?
By all means.
Okay.
By all means. And I'm one of the flying instructors there. In fact, I'm the chief flying instructor at the club, so I put everybody through their paces and make sure that they are meeting the standards. We have very high standards, but it would typically take 15 hours of dual flight with an instructor and 15 hours of solo before you get a license.
Are you also the person who puts together the hot air balloon festival?
I'm on the organizing committee for the Philippine International Hot Air Balloon Fiesta. That's the biggest, it's the largest spectator event in the Philippines. It's held every February. It's going to be held next year between the 10th to the 13th of February.
That's every year.
And that's held at Clark Field in Pampanga.
Angeles Flying Club, that's where they find you.
Yeah.
All right. So congratulations and a good job for everything that you do. Bravo for helping out the people in this country and, of course, adding value. The show is up. Thank you for adding insights to Expat Insights. If there's anything you want to say to your friends, your customers, your family, you have 30 seconds each, and that's your camera. So ladies first, maybe?
Okay, my motto is be kinder than necessary, because everyone is fighting their own battles.
All right, be kinder than necessary. That's short and sweet. Yes. How about you, Terry?
I think every day is a gift. And to me, the important thing is that you maximize the potential of that gift and you live every day to its fullest in whatever endeavor you have.
Ang galing naman. In Tagalog, is ang galing naman. How do you say bravo in Cebuano?
Maayog yun kaayo.
Maayog whatever. So thank you for being on Expat Insights. And
thank you, Raju.
Thank you.
And
I hope,
Raju.
Good luck with everything you do. So ladies and gentlemen, that was Terry Hockenhull and Padma Siap. We talked about sales and customer service excellence in the 21st century. Next week on Expat Insights, we have Donald Limb, and we have No, we don't have Donald. We have Donald Lim, and we have the guy from the Awesome Planet. So see you next week. Mabuhay and good night.